my experience would be different to the majority because, as I said a few minutes ago, we were fortunately new people in the district where we went to. So I think the people I actually was evacuated to officially drew a billeting allowance. I can't remember how much it was. Do your records show how much they had or not? Anyway, I was there on paper and moved to these relations on a ad hoc basis so we could, my parents were able to re-establish their connection with their family. And because I didn't go to the school that the ministry or the government decreed, I didn't see many of my school friends or school acquaintances. I was never a very social sort of person, so I wasn't over upset about having to find new friends. But it was quite an experience actually being evacuated. We went to school that morning, sent to our various classes, and were issued with a label. And we had to get your label, you had to have your toothbrush and toiletries with you in a parcel, and your gas mask. That was essential. Gas mask in one hand, ration book in the other hand. And in exchange for that, you got a label, which was yours, your name and the address you were going to go to. And in a crocodile, you walked through the town to the railway station, and regimented on to various. You were in such and such a compartment on the train. The similar process in reverse when you got to the other end, to Aylesbury, and then the railway station into a bus, and then into the middle of the village, and then into the various houses that people were billeted to. Amongst the tears, must have been tremendous for people that were of a family, that was going to be split up. I was a one and only, and it just became matter of fact to me because I was a one and only, but people that were in a family and they were split up, it must have been tremendous. We visited the various schools, and you adjusted to the life which was so different. I can remember noticeably how I overheard a conversation how ill-mannered evacuated children were. But thinking back about it, kids that were displaced from their social standing, going into a different environment, the people that they had to speak to would have had a different standard of language almost. Please and thank you was, a secondary thought. Let's get out of trouble was the prime move. Where I went to, my standard of living improved no end. Well, fortunately, the people that I was evacuated with and lived with for that period kept chickens. We had egg for breakfast, thing that was only a rarity, where they just weren't on ration during the war. The rationing situation was so strict, but people's health didn't seem to suffer from lack of food. We're all at the moment overweight. We eat too much, and we throw far too much away. Well, the area that we were living in were owner-occupiers. I can't remember the expression. Pride and poverty. Pride and poverty, wasn't it? These people who bought houses just before the war broke out. They were frightened to death they were going to get blown up, and all their savings would be gone. they're more concerned about their physical properties than they were about their lives. Because they'd spent they'd invested all their money, but money was cheap enough in those days. You were able to buy a house and afford to pay a mortgage. It doesn't compare with today's prices. But going back to the air raid shelters, these people that got their own occupiers, and they wanted to protect what they could of their way of life, so they built these concrete monstrosities close enough so that they could get from the house into it before they got blown up. And these were so primitively built, no ventilation, just a concrete block with a hole in the middle of it for the average family. Had quite a lot of bomb damage locally. My house, the house I was living in, my parents' house, was damaged, not severely, but damaged. We've got pictures of it somewhere, where the tiles were blown off. And so I remember distinctly seeing this doodlebug come across, heard it. It's horrible noise. The sound was so different to anything we'd heard recently, were used to hearing at that time. And when it cut out, the silence was so exact, so you could cut it with a knife and watch the thing go out of sight. And then the noise stopped. We waited 4 or 5 seconds, and then there was this almighty bang. We knew the direction it had gone into.
Yeah.
And it wasn't very long. I got a bicycle and I cycled to go and see what had happened. And as we got closer to where it was, we realised exactly where. At Northwood Hills is where it landed. Well, there was the doodlebug was just a random explosion or a random touch. They just pointed them towards London and hoped for the best. We just had hard luck that there was the V2, the V1 and the V2. They were. I was very fortunate to get a job. I wasn't particularly bright at schoolwork. As a result, I wanted a job where I hadn't got to do any paperwork. And I managed to get a job on a farm, which was, I was very, very lucky to get a job on a farm and still be able to live at home. I cycled 5 miles night and morning to work. I was getting horses ready for their milk rounds. This particular farm had got 12 milk rounds, and I used to have to get there early enough in the morning to get 12 horses out of the field, harnessed up, and harnessed into their carts for the milkman to arrive and go off and do his milk round. Then when he came back, I got to make sure the horse was tidy, ready to go out the following morning. As far as I was concerned, it was just a job. But prior to that, between when I was 14, just between the start of the war, when it got so that it did affect us, I was what they called a runner for the air raid wardens. Fortunately, we didn't have anything to actually do because we didn't get bombed while I was actually on duty, but I enjoyed the privilege of being able to call myself a runner. So if they needed messages taken, because if anything happened to the telephones, of course, there was no other means of communication. I personally, and the majority of the people that I was mixed with, didn't think of danger. It wasn't a question of doing anything that was unsafe. You just kept your head down. I had a history lesson when I came home from school. Well, not necessarily because he was away from home, but when he came home at the weekends, we had a map on the wall of the continent, and they would stick various pins in where various things had happened. I knew more about the geography of France than I knew about the geography of England, all of which is gone. I mean, I wouldn't remember any of it now, but that was the only interest we had, and the effect that the rationing had on our livelihood. Literally on my own. My mother had her private life, and so did my father, because he was away from home. So I came home from school and scrounged what food I could and off to play. See, during the Blitz, I suppose in the 40s, the early 40s, as soon as I got home from school, jump on my bike and cycle up to London, which was only 10 miles away, to see where the bombs had dropped. I got a bucket full of shrapnel I was very proud of, you know. Today I suppose it'd be worth quite a bit as souvenirs, but I remember being very disappointed, very annoyed in fact, when Mother just tipped it in the dustbin.